What's growing on, gardeners? It's Monday, August 14th, and it has been the hottest and most humid week of the year here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, but my mind is focused like a laser beam on my fall garden. And for that reason, on today's video, I'm going to share with you 9 different veggies that I started this week, and you can too.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
In this seedling tray right here, I have 8 different veggies that I started from seed only 3 days ago, and most of them are already beginning to germinate. And in here I have kale, cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, Swiss chard, mustard greens, leeks, and basil. And the 9th veggie is one that I'm starting in this old pickle container right here. It is Chinese pink celery. Now, aside from the celery, leeks, and basil, all the other vegetables that I mentioned are brassicas. They're all cruciferous vegetables. And the thing about them is, while they are frost tolerant, they are both very susceptible to bolting in the heat and also very susceptible to damage from hard freezes. So because of that, the overwhelming majority of your success when it comes to starting these plants is all going to boil down to timing, and timing. In order to be successful, you have to thread that timing window so these plants mature while the weather is nice and cool so they don't bolt before you harvest them, but also they need to mature before the days get really short and the growth gets sluggish, and before the hard freezes move in, because the hard freezes can damage them. So a lot of climates are only going to have something like a 4 to 6 week window that you have to work with where you want the plants to mature for best results. But wait, there's more. Most of these vegetables are not going to germinate in high soil temperatures. So for that reason, I can't go out into my garden and direct sow any of these. They're not going to germinate. I need to start them all indoors in transplant trays where my indoor temperatures are in the 70s, because these will germinate ideally best in 70-degree soil temperatures, which just so happens to be perfect room temperature in most homes. So in order to maximize germination, I planted the seeds in seed starting trays near a sunny window inside my house, where the temperatures are in the 70s, that are air-conditioned temperatures basically, and I have had incredible results germinating at these indoor temperatures. In only 3 to 4 days, I already have near total germination in a lot of these seeds. Here you can see the germination results in less than 4 days. As you can see, all of the brassicas have germinated for the most part. The only plants I'm waiting on are the basil and the leeks, which have different germination requirements. The basil requires higher temperatures overall, so they'll take a little bit longer to germinate, and the leeks also have a longer germination time in general, so I would expect them to begin sprouting in a few days. When starting seedlings indoors, it's very important that you start them in front of the sunniest window possible, because it is the intense sunlight that will prevent your seedlings from getting leggy. If you don't have a very sunny window in your house, you will have to get yourself some supplemental grow lights, but keep in mind, if you use grow lights, they have to be slowly transitioned to true sun outdoors, because the real sun will burn plants that are grown under grow lights. You have to acclimate them slowly. In the northern hemisphere, where most of us live, a south-facing window is going to be our sunniest window in general. In the southern hemisphere, it is the opposite. You will want a north-facing window if you live in the southern hemisphere. I cannot stress how important it is that you start most of these plants from transplant in transplant trays, because, like I said, your success is all going to come down to timing. If you wait until the soil temperatures cool down enough in order for you to plant these directly out into the garden, it will be too late to start these, because by the time the plants mature, it will then get too cold. You want these to be roughly 6-week-old transplants where you can get most of the growth done in the house in the cooler weather where they're never going to bolt. And then you want to carry them outside as those 6-week-old transplants. That way you get them a big jump start and you don't have to deal with the crazy variable weather of late summer, early fall that is inherent to most places around the world. So basically, if you wait until the temperatures are ideal to start these from seed, it's going to be too late. You're going to run out of growing season. Starting these from transplant allows us to get a huge 6 to 8 week jump start on the season, so you can carry these out as pretty substantially tall plants out into your garden when the temperature allows, and you no longer have to worry about them bolting in the heat, but you'll also get the harvest before it gets too cold in the winter. The other piece of advice that I need to give you is that when it comes to these fall garden vegetables like brassicas and such, don't plant them all out at once. Plant them in waves. In here, I only have 1 6-pack of green cabbage, 1 6-pack of red cabbage, 1 6-pack of broccoli. I have 2 different types of kale in here, but they're both different varieties. The reason why I'm only doing 6 plants at a time is you want to stagger your harvests. You don't want to plant out 30 heads of cabbage all at once, because if they all mature at the same time, what are you going to do with them? That's way too much cabbage. So if you want to plant 30 heads of cabbage, consider starting 12 heads of cabbage a week for 2 to 3 weeks, and then get them out into your garden so they don't mature all at the same time and you wind up having no food to more food than you know what to do with. Same thing with broccoli. I'm only planting 6 at a time because I can only eat so much broccoli in a week. So stagger those harvests out. Don't plant everything at the exact same time so you wind up with way too much food and then they all go away and you have nothing to eat. Now you may be wondering what happens if you're new at this and you wind up botching the timing and you plant things way too early and you have these transplants that need to go out in your garden, but since you started too early, it's still too hot. What do? Well, there is a simple solution to that. If you wind up starting your plants too early and you have to transplant them out while it's too hot, consider using shade cloth to your advantage. Both of these beds are covered with 40% shade cloth. It makes an enormous difference when it comes to growing things. That's how I'm able to grow corn and string beans right now when it's otherwise way too hot. The string beans under there look absolutely fantastic, whereas my older string beans that are out in my garden unprotected are basically scorched. I'm not really going to get anything off of them. Meanwhile, I'm also growing romaine lettuce under here, and they're actually looking pretty good overall, considering it was 98 degrees yesterday with a 120 degree heat index. This shade cloth works magic. I have them all over the place, including a huge shade tunnel. Growing under shade has basically been a revolution for me in my garden. You can use a similar strategy if you also start your transplants too late and you wind up getting an early frost. You can simply cover things with a frost blanket, which will protect them through the first few cold weeks of winter before it gets way too cold and things wind up freezing through and there's really nothing you can do about it. In fact, I plan on all of these things. Using shade cloth, I'm able to extend my early season, and using frost blankets, I'm able to extend my late season. And when you combine the two, you can wind up getting an additional month or more on your growing season. And if you're a big fan of that game, one of these things are not like the others. You may be wondering why I'm growing basil. That's because my basil is just getting killed by the heat. I don't have enough shade cloths to cover every single thing in my garden. This one is starting to yellow. This one is starting to yellow. So because basil are small plants that you eat the leaves, they wind up growing pretty quickly, and I want to have myself a nice mid-fall harvest of basil as well. And for all of you basil lovers out there, I found that the purple basil actually tolerates the warm temperatures better. It's a hardier variety. However, even the purple basil is starting to get some yellowing on the leaves, and I have basil planted all over the place and it's all suffering in this heat. So I just want to make sure that I have another successive planting of basil for the fall as well. And if you're wondering what the deal with the leeks are a fairly interesting vegetable. They're a very cold hardy allium, and some of them are also heat tolerant as well. So I like to have strategic plantings of leeks in my garden at all time because they can stand through hot weather and cold weather. So even though the heat tends to beat them up more than the cold, I'm going to start 6 leeks right now that I can plant out in my winter garden because they can stand all year out in zone 8. Some of the standing leeks can grow all the way down to zone 5 and survive under snowpack all winter, and you can just come out whenever you need them and harvest them. However, I have no need for 100 leeks all maturing at the same time. That's why I advocate planting a single 6-pack at a time, staggered by a couple of weeks. That way you don't get your harvest all at once. You get a longer season and you can better manage your food supply so you don't go from famine to feast to famine again. And that right there are 9 veggies that I planted this week, and you can too, along with some helpful tips and tricks to growing them along the way to maximize your harvest. Now, as I said, this is only a partial planting of the vegetables that I will be growing for the fall because I don't want too much of my garden ripening and coming mature at the exact same time. So I will start another tray of almost the exact identical seedlings in about another 2 weeks. That way I can stagger my harvests throughout the late fall into the early winter in my garden. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, they are all linked down in the video description in my Amazon storefront link. So if you expand that video description, click on the Amazon link, you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
We had a really bad line of storms come through last night, and I'm just waking up, and my Dale is still sleeping in the closet. He slept in the closet all night. Buddy, oh, I hope you're okay. I hope you're okay. The storms went through early enough that we were still awake. The storms passed, and he just decided he'd rather hunker down in here all night. So he just hung out with me, right, buddy? Right, buddy? Aw. The storms are over, buddy. Let's go outside and have our morning potties.